honest opinion, if I may ask you that, of the present dispensation? And I mean, would you like to give an honest appraisal of, what you think have their triumphs and failures have been, of what's happening currently with the, do you think, what is your opinion as somebody who's outside, who's not living or residing in India?
As someone looking in from outside, India is in a very interesting period right now, because India was colonized very subtly but very comprehensively by the British for 150 years. And when they handed over power to elites who wanted to really perpetuate the system. And maybe they wanted to perpetuate the system because they were not confident, because this idea of racism were still very powerful in Europe as well. And this current idea that everybody is equal was not really something that was widely, at least internalized. Because I remember reading Nehru's autobiography, and he speaks of when he went to Europe to study, he found that Indians were maybe 6th or 7th down the totem pole. You had the Nordics, then you had the French, then you had the Italians, then you had the Slavs. In fact, some people say the Slavs are called Slavs because the Westerners, the Nordics, took them as slaves. You had this whole sequence, right? And the Indians were darker, and therefore they were at the bottom. And I think after independence, we operated from this acute sense of inferiority. So we wanted to just do what the pundits back in London would say is correct. We only wanted to do that way because we didn't have the confidence. But now, in the early 90s, there was this huge economic shock when India was almost bankrupt, and India couldn't feed itself. Then Indians went out, and each Indian who went out went through a process of great churning, this Samudra Manthan that must take place in every human being. And we had to do away with a lot of these attitudes which we had been taught in the schools in India and through the educational system and through the entertainment system, which had been placed in our minds. And then people realized, I remember in the early 90s, people in the Silicon Valley saying that, look, we just discovered we are as good as anybody else. Right. And now, of course, they are the most powerful entrepreneurs that you have anywhere, or thinkers, or, any particular field. So they realized what they had been told was wrong. And this has started percolating back to India, especially through the social media. And now, the power of the old establishment is getting weaker and weaker, because the old establishment was the libraries, the universities. They curated everything, or the powerful newspapers, they curated. They said what was to be believed and what was not to be believed. But now that's all gone. Although this is a problem that has emerged in the West now. America is also going through a big churning, because America is sensing that they may be losing power to Asia, right? China, they can't compete with the Chinese. So there is an attempt, even in America right now, to throttle questioning of the establishment view. And in fact, part of what's going on between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is a playing out of this struggle. But in India, the establishment until the 90s completely throttled questioning. This is what we have to do. And people had no choice. We could barely, get a job and survive. Right. That has changed. Indians cannot be held back. Not only cannot be held back, Indian ideas are sweeping the world. You go to any country. In fact, I came across this wonderful lady from Saudi Arabia 3-4 years ago at a conference in Delhi, and she was speaking about how even the Saudis want to do yoga. Saudi women are doing yoga, and they knew that the mullahs would be against it, so they slipped it in through the Ministry of Sports. So they're saying
Wow.
it's good for your health. But you know, the asanas are the doorway to opening the mind. Yoga is sweeping the entire world. You go to China, you go to Russia, you go to South America, it's everywhere. So Indian ideas are going everywhere. And the average Indian recognizes it. I think the greatest opposition to all of this wisdom is not in the West. I found people totally open. I think is still in India.
Within India.
It's in India. It's the people who do this, who write these copies, you know, in newspaper about the festivals that you say. They try to denigrate everything that Indians have done. You know,
Yes.
they want to make fun of the bindi also. You know, you've got
Yes.
to copy the Westerner in everything. If the Westerner doesn't have bindi, you shouldn't have it, because you have to be totally secular.
Exactly.
The word secular is being used as a way to beat down on Hinduism, which is so ridiculous and shocking. I think Indians are saying enough is enough. And this is, first of all, it's not even sectarian. Hinduism is universal knowledge, you know, Vedas are universal knowledge. It's not even sectarian. We are not even saying that somebody else is inferior or whatever. We are saying that, look, this is a beautiful way of understanding yourself, of going through this pathway of knowledge. And you can also join us. Everybody can join us. And people are joining us everywhere. In the West, most people, I think I hope I get her name right, Judith Miller, maybe not Judith Miller, I forget, that was another lady. This lady wrote a very famous column in Newsweek about 15, 20 years ago, titled, "We Are All Hindus Now," in America. She was talking about America, in the sense that, look, what is Hinduism? Its belief in many ways lead to the same understanding, right? Ekam sat vipras bahuda vadanti, right? So that's one, which is very different from authoritarian.
The Abrahamic point of view, yes.
Yeah, so people can do it differently. People can do different kinds of sadhana. You may not even want to go to a temple because that doesn't agree with your temperament. That's perfectly fine. You may just want to do dance. You may just want to do music. Music is your sadhana. Or you may want to go and walk in the forest. That's perfectly fine too. This is open. This is freedom, right? Hinduism is about freedom. So this is one. The other is 80-90% of the Americans now believe in reincarnation. It's not that one has to even believe in reincarnation to be a Sanatani, to be a Hindu, but you know, many people do because it seems to make sense. Or what else is Hinduism? That Atman, that there is something which is within you, and which is
even the idea of karma, Subhashji.
The idea of karma, absolutely. I think most Westerners have claimed it, have adopted it.
They say karma, yes.
Absolutely. I think, you know, if they estimates that 90% of Europeans are not practicing Christian anymore, or 90% of Americans or Canadians or South Americans have not, then who are they? They've started following Sanatana Dharma without knowing it, or they are going back to their old ways. In Russia or in Lithuania, they're talking of Romuva, which is their old pre-Christian religion, and Romuva is from Rama. Or in Russia, they're talking of it's called something with rod from Rudra. So they're all trying to go back because Sanatana Dharma is universal verities, universal truths which emerge from the very depths of one's own consciousness. And the ultimate reality is consciousness, because whatever exists in the physical world also is taken by us in our consciousness. Ultimately, it exists in our consciousness, right? Now, you are in my consciousness, so I'm in your consciousness because we are watching each other. But so we are not. So this is the heart of Sanatana Dharma. And I think this is, if it's true, if gravity is true, ultimately everybody would acknowledge that gravitation is a force. And if this is true, people all over the world, even if they are not being allowed at this moment for whatever reason, because a lot of what goes on in the world is about domination, it's about control. But
Absolutely.
eventually people want to be free. They want to be connected to truth. And this is the truth.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.